CEE Brown in your face.
Have you heard of Everything at Once?
Do you know about Everything at Once?
It's internationally known.
Aliens listen to it.
It's the best ever.
If there's something you're looking for in the 814, or feeling a little bored and think there ain't no more, check out Everything at Once and allow it to be your source. It's that raw podcast that's always showing support, highlighting the scene. No need to take I-90 to Peep or 79 to see how it be. Interviewing your locals with mindsets that are global. Innovators and creators on every single upload. So much going on in the EPA.
Incredible content.
Everything at Once will keep you up to date.
Amazing guests.
What you doing? Come through and hang with Tony and Dave.
Community driven.
Bringing everything at once from around the way. Everything at once from around the way. Hey.
Please listen. We love you. Everything at Once.
Everything at Once.
It's time to introduce this show.
The best show on the face of the planet.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in today. We want to thank our Patreon producers, Brian G., Josh W., Ian D., Nick G., and Sadie M.
Patreon, it's an awesome way to support the show and say thanks. You can become a Patreon supporter by clicking the link below and choosing to be an intern, assistant, or producer level supporter.
If being on the production team is too much pressure for you, you can also send any contributions using our Venmo at Everything at Once Studios. We now want to thank all the local businesses who supported this episode. These businesses get the Everything at Once stamp of approval and are critical members of the Everything at Once community. We couldn't do it without them. We've all seen those cars covered in rust, rotting out the floorboards and shortening their lifespans. Don't let your car be a victim of the harsh Erie winters this year by getting a fluid film undercoating at Tommy's Automotive.
Winter is coming. Book your appointment today. Fluid film undercoating with Tommy's Automotive starts at $100. God, that's so cheap.
It really is a great deal.
It's a slamming deal. So you're going to want to call Tommy to get your quote right now at 814-384-8088.
With winter approaching, are there any last-minute details that you want to change or renovate around your home?
I might, but you know who to call.
Yeah, Ghostbusters!
No, Tony. No, not Ghostbusters. Solid State Construction.
Oh, yeah. Solid State.
Yeah.
Duh. Solid State takes pride in all their home remodeling projects. Solid State specializes in bathroom remodeling, kitchen renovation, window and door installation, custom design work, and more, including painting, flooring, drywall, sidewalk, decks. Get your free quote today by calling Nick at 814-397-7854. Solid people, solid product, Solid State Construction.
You know, Tony, with all these renovations from Solid State, I think we might have kicked up some bad energy around here. Yeah, oh yeah. Luckily, we know just the people to go see.
I know it this time. It's Ghostbusters.
No, Tony. Our friends at Cauldron and Thorne.
Wow. I feel really dumb right now, and I can't believe I didn't think of Cauldron and Thorne. The world's largest witchcraft and metaphysical shop, with everything a person needs to channel the spirit world.
Practice some self-care.
Find enlightenment.
Curse your enemies.
Protect yourself from your enemies.
Bless your friends.
Cleanse your space from negative energies. You can check out all the magical wares available for these different practices we all love and enjoy at Cauldron and Thorne, 2724 West 8th Street, or online at cauldronandthorne.com.
This week, we have an incredible guest for you.
Jasmine Flores, City Councilor. Welcome to Everything at Once Studios. Thanks for coming down to hang out with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm kind of honored. It's kind of awkward. You don't expect to be asked to come and talk about politics
on a local thing.
It's one of our favorite things to do.
It's honestly, like, our politics guests are some of our favorite, and we're kind of invested in the community, and that's like the whole overarching goal of this thing was to like raise community awareness of all the good things that are happening around here. Are you from like Erie originally?
Yeah, born and raised. I grew up on 5th and Wallace, between Parade and Wallace, so I'm a through and through Erieite. That's
yeah,
what they call us. I'm half Mexican, half Puerto Rican, so my family came here My dad came here in the 80s from
Cool.
Mexico. My grandma came here from Puerto Rico. So
Big family?
yeah, I'm the oldest of 12.
Oh my God, dude.
13 if you include myself. It's just awkward to include yourself.
When you're counting family members, right? How old is the youngest?
My youngest sister, Camila, is going to be 9.
Oh man, that's
And
awesome.
I'm 30.
Woo!
My dad is
That's
very
like one
busy.
every year. Yeah, dude.
I'd say.
That's awesome.
His is the youngest. My mother has a 15-year-old, so he's the youngest. So my mom has 9, and then my dad and his wife have 4 additional besides me and my brother.
Cool.
Me and my brother have the same mom and dad.
So, what was it like growing up in Erie, like back in the day, in that area,
Well,
compared to what it's like now?
for me, you have to take into perspective that, I'm a first-generation American.
Uh-huh.
So our culture and our household is still very much from where we're migrating from. So we were really isolated. So it was like, we lived in the neighborhood, but we didn't necessarily venture out in the neighborhood much. Like the kids played with each other, but that was pretty much it. So, down in the neighborhood that I grew up in before was all green space. It was housing. So it was full of lots of low-income houses. And, as you grow up, they start deferred maintenance is the word and the term. And a lot of landlords, they did what they call white flight. So they left the houses that they lived in the city and they bought houses in the suburbs, and then they started renting these houses, and then they didn't upkeep the property, so therefore they no longer
Deteriorate,
they
yeah.
deteriorate around you, and they're no longer habitable. And then Erie Insurance comes in
And buys that whole area.
buys it all up.
Yeah.
And knocks it all down and makes
Right.
it a green space. So for me, it's like a skeleton of the neighborhood that it once was. And I drive through those neighborhoods just because I remember the families and the stories and the childhood memories of going to the playgrounds in those areas. And now you see it, but it's really isolated and not as, full and vibrant. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah. It feels like that's like the area that they've been trying to move people to for a long time, like lower income people, and it's unfortunate that like that feeling of like redlining, or like I can't think of the correct word right now in my head what they're doing to downtown. But like
Gentrification?
yeah, like re-gentrifying the area and sending people over to that part. But there's also like some shining areas too. Like I remember when we were looking for our house, there were a couple places down there that were like newly renovated, and certain people are taking advantage of those areas to turn them into, good living spaces and raise that property value again. But a lot has changed since then. Like we were all growing up. We're all in our 30s here,
Right.
and what do you think that like you can do for that community as like a city councilor now?
Well, for me, making sure that those voices are being heard. A lot of people, they're so overworked and they don't have time. They're not paying attention much to what's going on, but it's no fault to them because when you're trying to pay rent, and,
Yeah, that's obviously the priority over.
buy food, you're not caring when the election's coming up. So for me, I started this work as a grassroots organizer. So I'm a community organizer at heart. I think like, how do we build relationships? How do we make connections? How do we unite? Because united, we're like the little ants,
Right.
and the grasshoppers. If there's more of us than them, we outnumber and we can get some change that are really going to impact our day to day. Like for me, growing up in a city that was slowly declining, but my grandma always said it was a great place to raise a family, I always was confused because the opportunities were very limited. So
Right.
I'm like, what? How can you say that, but then everyone leaves and then they come back after they've established themselves? So it's kind of like a two-end, sword that you have to go away and then come back later in life. So some of those of us who are here, with our feet in the ground, waging war on our city being taken from us, are really trying to just unite and organize the community, educate them on, if you're not at the table, you're on the table. If you're not being involved in the political process, decisions will be made for you, which is what the last 40 years of the same handful of people getting elected and making the decisions over and over, recycle, reuse, is affecting us on massive scales that like our school system has fell.
It's over there.
The affordability to be in our city is slowly being stripped from us. Finding and maintaining family sustainable wages is laughable when you have to make about 24 and some change to actually be a single
Parent,
income
yeah.
person to sustain yourself. And we have people who our minimum wage is $7.25 in the state of Pennsylvania. They will lowball you on that wage. They will give you 12 and say, be grateful.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
It's not $7.25.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And-
like twice as much, right? That's
Yeah,
a good
exactly,
thing, you
yeah.
know?
But
That-
you're not getting 40 hours a week.
Exactly, yeah.
No, for
And
sure.
you have to work multiple part-time jobs, and the cost of food is up, and the cost of gas is up. Like, you can go to New York and get cheaper gas. You can go to Buffalo and get cheaper things than here in our own state. And it's kind of sad because people do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're trying to save money.
Right.
And, you know, everyone has a different way of surviving. And I've grown to learn not to knock anyone's hustle. Because when you're barely above water, you're going to do some interesting things to
To get
break
by.
even.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to like? I mean, you mentioned so many things, and there's obviously a ton of mitigating factors that have made all these things a reality right now. But for someone who's not really doesn't really have the pulse or the information about why things are getting so expensive or why things the way they are the way they are. The classic move that you just see over social media nowadays, you know, all the way up to a national level, is to blame politicians. So, like, how difficult is it to rally these troops around you to be like, get involved in this political
Yeah, this is going to be
movement
different.
when the climate is just like so damning for most people?
I mean, it's very difficult because you have a lot of career politicians who've screwed us over massively. And it's hard for people to give someone new a chance. But when that person is talking about the same things that you're experiencing, can resonate, and is in your community day to day, you kind of support them even without even really understanding why it is that you're gravitating towards them. I've been really grateful to have a lot of community support. And, you know, I feel like it's love and it's community. It's not necessarily like, oh, we have to tolerate her. Oh,
Yeah.
she's here, so now we have to be nice to her. It's more like, oh, she's here, like, let's have a good time. So for me, it's like, I feel like because I'm more personable, because I'm seen regularly, because I've been in this fight since 2018, consistently, not going away, same message, same things. Like, I was running for office on a renter's bill of rights, and I just helped pass, you know, a tenant's renter's ordinance, and that is an achievement that unless you're at the
huge.
table writing legislation, you can't fix things. So legislatively is how you get things done.
Right.
You get a lot of people who will come and smile in your face and want your vote, and then they're gone. They disappear.
Well, for that ordinance, too, there was quite a fair amount of pushback on it as well from people.
I mean, yeah, we had a lot of people who were worried that it was going to give the renter more right than the tenant.
Or the
Or,
landlord.
well, yeah, the landlord more right than the tenant. And at the end of the day, the landlord is the property owner. And yes, it is your business. But you also have to understand that as a renter, we should have protection to have clean, safe, sound, healthy housing. Like, we have a lot of slumlords who are just there for the paycheck.
Right, for sure.
Like, I literally just left a horrible renting unit on the east side, and I drove by today to get my mail, and they're doing the slumlord special, painting a fresh paint of paint on everything, because I seen them in
Sure,
the window,
yeah.
and then it'll probably be available for rent next week. They probably didn't fix any of the leaking, any of the roof is going to cave.
Right.
That's why I wanted to get out of there, because I didn't want to come home and it be in my,
Your living room?
kitchen
Yeah, for sure.
or my bathroom. So I was just happy to be out of there. But ultimately, there's so many people who are experiencing unhealthy housing, and they're paying every month, and they deserve to have a place where they can report a landlord and not be evicted 5 days later because you made a report.
Right.
So that's pretty much what the ordinance is that if you have a property that isn't sound and you want to report, then the landlord can't retaliate against you because it's known to where people aren't giving people the 30-day evictions.
Right.
They're telling them you got 5 days, get out. And if you don't know your rights, because a lot of people are first-generation American, they don't know what they have rights and privileges to because their parents came here not speaking English. They're the first ones to speak English, and they're learning the school system, but they're not asking the right questions to know the right answers. So it's like, it's a learning experience.
Right, and a lot of those people don't have somebody to ask those questions to. You know what I mean? If I'm in this situation with my landlord and I have to, like, he's my...
Like, my roof is leaking. Like, I got mold growing. Like, I can't heat my house because my electric bill, like, literally are so high. Like, there's so many situations that, like, you're making money off of this property. You should try to invest in it. You probably have programs you qualify for. Like,
they probably
do the footwork so that your investment is sustainable long term, and don't just run it until you decide, I don't care about it anymore.
And then let the house be condemned or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, chalk it up as a loss.
Yeah.
And plus, I feel like a lot of that, like, slumlord mentality is, like, old people. You know what I mean? Like, you have to get to a certain age or a certain, like, material, and I think that, like, with a certain age, like, comes a certain amount of material wealth to be able to buy those houses or to have had those houses for a long enough time where you don't care anymore and you're old now and you're...
It's not your main property. It's your second or third one. So,
Yeah, exactly. And
cares?
there's people swooping in too from, like, corporations across that are, like, in California or in Florida or in wherever, and they have all of these different rental units all over the country. You know what I mean? They might have 3 in Erie, they might have 5 in Pittsburgh and Cleveland, Buffalo, you know, wherever they're at, and they just get, like, lost in the sauce, and they're not actually, like, ever laying eyes on these places. You know, they're just sending out their management people who are in it for the same bit. You know what I mean? They're contracted out for X amount of dollars, and they're not putting in a cent more than the amount of money that they're contracted for, and trying to make, you know what I mean? It's just a whole mess of, like, poor, greedy capitalism.
literally, because, I mean, technically, in order to rent, you're supposed to have, like, a renter's license. And I think, like, you go through yearly or bi-yearly period, but your house is supposed to be inspected, but even the city contracted that out.
Right.
So not even the city people who do that half of the time, as far as I know.
And plus, when you're in that business, everybody knows somebody. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I need my license. I better call, you know, my buddy that we've worked on properties together. He's my friend forever. He'll just sign the paperwork.
Well,
and not to say that, like, all realtors are, like, bad or that everything's corrupt, but, like...
I mean, if you look at things from the standpoint of, like, going through names and, like, who knows who and how things crisscross, it's an interesting game you find on, you know, people intertwining and knowing a lot of people, and that's probably why things have gotten how
So
they've
bad.
gotten.
Well, I mean, I feel like that happens for better or worse in not almost, I'd say every walk of life, every profession, no matter what you do. Like,
Right.
you build connections, and through building those connections, that's one of the benefits of networking is you get, like, these favors or, like, favorable deals or people that are willing to help you maybe under the table or something like that. Yeah, the older generation, you know, holding that much money, like the baby boomers have such a disproportionate amount of the wealth in this country. And it's an interesting, what's the word I'm looking for?
Dynamic?
It's an interesting dynamic. Thank you. Because you get a lot of, too, like, it's almost become like a farce now a little bit, but a caricature of what they are. But the older people just don't fully understand the struggle right now, because when they were younger, like, they try to comparatively, when I was younger, I did this and this, and I was able to do that, you know, I was able to save and buy a house. People are just not disciplined now.
Yeah, it's their comparison to when they were young. And it's like I'm grateful and happy that I'm in the room because I'm 30 years old. And when they bring up, well, when I was young, well, when you were my age, that was 40 years ago.
Right.
So put that into perspective.
It's good to have young people represent us, and I like that our city council is full of people around my age roughly, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's starting to slowly fill up with, younger and more of the current working class and the current, homeowning or starting, to try to build that wealth for our family or trying to start families or whatever it is we're trying to do. It's a lot harder for us because, we did what we were told. We went to school. We took out student loans. We worked these jobs. They're not paying anywhere near enough to sustain ourselves, let alone pay everything that we've taken out to owe. And then we have people tell us that, well, you took out those loans. That's your problem.
Right.
We took out those loans because you told us to go to school.
Right.
Yeah.
I
At the age of 18, when our brains aren't developed and we're like, this is the only chance that we have at having a future. You know what I mean?
Like, do I go to school or do I work and then get an apartment and a job and to sustain myself? And then you realize, oh, wait, I got to live with my parents because I don't make enough. So maybe I should just go to school.
It's one of those contradictory things where, depending on what the issue is, it's like they're kids. We need to protect them. We need to teach them. And then, with this certain thing, you get raised, or at least in our generation, you got raised like you have to go to college. That's the only way you can get ahead in life. It's the only shortcut. And now people are like, well, those are the dumbasses who took out $100,000 in loans but we told them to do it when they were kids and impressionable. You leave that part out of it.
Should have got a job at GE like I did when I was a young lad. And now
when I was fresh out of high school.
Yeah, making a bunch more money than I make right now back then.
But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of well-intentioned to that too. But when they were kids, that was what you needed to do, and it was something that was affordable in the long run, where you could pay off your loans and own a house and have a job that was good.
And now it's all barriers. It's 100% barriers. There's no chance. If I was in college today, or if I was to graduate today compared to when I actually did graduate, there's no possible fucking way that I would own a home or have how would I even afford a car if I didn't have the car that I have now that I'm not paying payments on? There's no fucking chance I'm able to buy a car. And just to have a car is or not having a car is such a huge barrier to so many things. It's such a monstrous time sink and a huge expense and all of these other things.
I didn't drive until the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
I was on the bus, and then the
I
pandemic
rode the bus
happened,
for many years.
And I got a car, and that's my biggest expense, and it's never ending, and I cannot wait to be done. But then even then, when you're done, it's still never ending.
It's now I need another car. I'm praying, fingers crossed, that I can pay off my fucking loans in time before my car dies, so that way I can
balance.
Go into a new debt now that my old debt is paid for, you know what I mean? And it's just that never-ending struggle that gets so discouraging for so many people that there's fuck it, you know what I mean? Give up and then work the shit job or whatever that doesn't pay very much and stay at home, you know what I mean? And not to put anything bad against those people, because it is a struggle and it's difficult and it's hard to find a job where you can even move out of your parents' house and pay for your bills and your loans and your car payments and all of that stuff. But it's just a very steep hill to climb and a huge learning curve for so many young people right now.
Well, I don't really feel like they teach us anything that we need to know in school.
A lot of it, for sure.
If you're a first-generation American, then your family's not budgeting checkbooks. They're not writing checks. They don't know anything about a freaking bank. So, you're the one discovering all this stuff when you first get your first job and when you first start learning, oh, maybe it is better to have credit because my grandma always told me don't take any credit cards out. Mm-hmm. So, you have a narrative of people scared of any possibility of the unknown. Mm-hmm. So you learn that as a young person, and depending on who you know and who you're talking to, you're rarely stuck in that mindset unless you decide to educate yourself and find the knowledge or answer your own questions, because sometimes that's how you have to be, because I'm not saying every parent knows what they're doing, but a lot of parents are growing as we're growing.
For sure.
So they're making hella mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I tell people they don't get it right the first one or two kids. It's the third or fourth one
those ones are doing good.
Yeah, those are the ones that are, okay, they got it together. They're not growing anymore. They're confident in what they're doing, their parenting skills. But, some people just never get it.
Right. And that family dynamic is so important and so, like, on edge, I feel like, for a low to moderate income family. There's so much to worry about and so many priorities above, like, teaching the valuable life lessons that a lot of us have to learn the hard way. And that's not just like how to balance a checkbook or whether or not to get credit cards. That's like how to be like a good person, you know what I mean? And not take shortcuts and not shortchange the people that are trying to help you, or you know what I mean? It's just how you conduct yourself in a community or as a person that doesn't, put your fellow person down. You know what I mean?
I think that's like another one of the tertiary side effects of poverty and like the low income, especially in this city, because there's so much struggle here. If you want to support your family properly, a lot of people, you're working the long hours, you're working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, if you're a single parent, God bless you, whatever, good luck.
For real,
you got to take the bus because you can't afford a car. That's an extra, hour and a half, 2 hours worth of commute. Like, you literally have a choice between, okay, I'm going to make money to put food on the table, or I'm going to have more time there so I can teach these lessons. Like, you can't be 2 different places at once, Yeah,
you have to just choose and decide, and then we wonder why our young people are getting into so much trouble because there's nothing to occupy them, while parents are working multiple part-time jobs to survive. Like, people ask the question, why are things
why are all these kids such assholes anymore?
I'm like, because more than likely the oldest sibling's raising all the younger siblings, so he's resentful or he or she is resentful to the situation.
And mom and dad
are MIA at work. So they understand, they got to go to work, they got to make money, they got to pay for everything. And let's hope that the household is decent enough to have these basic needs met, because some of those kids in the city are not that lucky.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of struggle, there's a lot of hurt, and it's generational. Mm-hmm. And then you have the same handful of people being reelected, making the same decisions, and they wonder why the outcome is the same every time, and they have playbook after playbook telling them to do it this way, and they just refuse because they know best.
Yeah, of course.
Or so they think, which the evidence is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Look at our city. We're in debt by all the decisions that these people have continued to make. Mm-hmm. So I'm at least happy to say that as of 2021, when I got on there, it's been nice to, be able to have some current changes, some good impact. Like, we were able to allocate funds towards park and recreation, so the MLK Center's park got redone. Awesome. Those kids deserved that park after walking through and seeing the conditions that they've been playing in for all these years. There's a lot more good that we can do. But when you have people who want to just put the money towards this, that, and the same thing, that they can apply for grants and they can get funding from the state and federal levels, most of our city budget is spent on salaries every year. Mm-hmm. There's not really much money to do community anything, but, there's certain things where we can apply for grants, we can get state and federal funding. It just comes down to, do we hire the people to do this? Right. Do we hire people to go after the money that might impact our community and make things better for these certain issues? Or do we hire someone to do this tedious task that might not necessarily be a good purchase for the city's yearly budget for the next 20 plus years, but we're going to do this because this is what we always do. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of that.
Yeah, it's sad to see the former government officials and government officials in general that are just so fucking detached from any normal human being's life, because when at least the caricature that I picture in my head when I think of a politician is wealthy white man, and they already fucking know anything because they own a business or they have rental properties that provide them supplemental income on the side, and all of these they just come from a super privileged position that allows them to be sheltered from anybody that's actually in need of any sort of assistance or any sort of help, which is they're missing the whole fact that the city of Erie, the world, the country, the state, everybody works together when everybody is working together.
I don't know if do you mean on the national?
I mean,
at
like
any
here
level.
in Erie, like if people are working together, we're able to accomplish more. And when certain people are given help when they need it, everybody is able to flourish to a higher degree.
I mean, like from the description of people that you just mentioned, like I'm not sure, like, and maybe this is the cynic in me, but I guess it would speak to like your constituents that you want to get out there and vote to. Like, I don't think it's so much maybe in my mind that they don't see it or don't understand. It's more that they don't care.
Yeah.
Because that specific group of people aren't
They're
voting.
people.
They're not involved.
Yeah.
They're not at the table.
Right.
So, like I tell people, you know, if you don't care about politics, that's cool. Don't care about politics, but at least care about your local stuff. At least care about who's on city council, who's in school board, who's your mayors, who your DEA is, who your judges are, because these people are going to impact you one day. Whether it's when you have a run-in with the law, whether you got to go into city hall because your neighbor down the street is parking in front of your lot and you don't like it, you're going to come want to be heard. So one day, maybe not today, you're going to need to know something about City Hall or about the political process. And it's nice to know that you have people there who actually genuinely care because you're going to get people who are detached, people who have no idea what the current struggle is, people who are speaking from their experience, and their experience is 40, 50, 60 years before your time. So it's kind of hard for you to get someone to sympathize with your current struggle when they don't have that understanding. And they're never going to have that understanding because where they sit, they were able to pull themselves up from their bootstraps.
That's right. They sure were.
Those bootstraps don't exist anymore. That's so interesting. I mean, this is 4 out of 4 with our political guests.
Our counselors.
Our counselors or
counselor-elects.
Counselor-elects. Nominees, whatever word works there. 4 out of 4 now. We're batting 1,000 where it's like, you know, state, national level stuff. That's like a whole other beast, you know, that's like out of our control. But every single time it's what you just said, like the local is so important. The local is a different type of politics. And it's something that you absolutely need to be involved in, even if the other stuff seems to like far out of reach or things that are just totally screwing you over around every corner. It's important to get involved locally.
I mean, Pennsylvania has elections every year. If you're only voting once every 4 years, then you're sitting out 3 times out of the time, well, actually probably 6 because you get a primary and a general. So every year, different things are being decided, and more than likely your city councilors and your mayors on an off-year election probably not on the same ticket as when the president's going.
Sure.
So you're not paying too much attention to that stuff, and then you get some horrible person in certain seats, like, you know, we currently have certain issues going on county council and our county executive, and we got lawsuits hitting left and right. And you're like, well, you know, as someone who was campaigning at this time, you get what you get. If you're not paying attention, if you're not participating in the process, when money that you were expecting to get and receive because of a program that you were in, because of this, that, and the next thing is no longer there, well, that person that just got elected did that.
Yeah. And that's what it really all comes down to is that, like, is the money. You know what I mean? That's what council and the executive, county council, city council, the mayor, all these people that are elected are in charge of
The money.
the money.
Like, we are the purse. City council, I'm the vice president of Erie City Council on my 2nd year on council. It's my 1st year term. But we are in charge of the city's budget. Now that budget is,
It's
in
a
debt.
lot.
It's a big budget. It's a yearly budget, and every year we would be borrowing money to balance our budget because of our deficit.
Who do they borrow money from?
Banks.
Like PNC or like?
I'm not. That's our financial department, but I don't know exactly
Okay.
which banks.
But generally, like,
but
the
generally
commercial-
probably local. Like, we try to do local support and local business, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's certain like federal and state banks that cities borrow money
Like
from. to help
Goldman
for sure.
Sacks and stuff like that? I don't know. Okay, I'm just
Chuck
curious.
would probably be the one who did like an extensive research on where do the city's budget
Loans
bank
come from?
loans come from.
Yeah.
Who knows? But ultimately, like, we've been in deficit for probably more than the last 20 years. Every year we have to borrow money. And because we've gotten ARP funds, we've been lucky enough to where we haven't had to borrow money the last couple of years.
Right.
But
Nice.
those funds are going to be gone.
Soon. Very soon.
Yes.
What is it, January 2024?
Yeah, they have to be like spent.
By then, or else
Or
they
before
disappear.
2025, something like that, or we have to send it back.
Yeah.
So how much of your time on council is dedicated towards making Erie like a sustainable?
Well, we technically only get our budget time when we're actually sitting there talking about actual budget stuff. Like we get a financial report every month, but that's just the regular business of City Hall. And, you know, bills coming in and bills going out, payments and grants stuff that's coming in. But roughly, we will go into our budget study sessions next month. And that's when the mayor will give us the budget for 2024. And we'll have study sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays for like 6 weeks.
Interesting. And so you guys have to allocate all of these funds to the different programs that the city of Erie takes care of.
Well, that and salaries and just everything.
All the employees, the police department, everything.
Everything.
Right. The garbage people.
Public work,
Everything.
everything.
But it's
Snowplows.
it's interesting because there's a lot of programs out that like have Erie or the city of Erie in their names that are not really government programs.
You mean like they're a sponsor of it?
I mean like the Erie Downtown Partnership or the Erie the EDDC and those other places that aren't really a part of the government but take that name. I don't know. I guess that no, I'm just thinking about like that there's a lot of things that are associated with the city of Erie that one might think are actually government programs that are not. And
Like you think that we're funding and supporting, but it's
Like,
really private.
it's really private money. All doing that stuff. And like I feel like a lot of these programs are doing really good things, and I'm wondering how Erie City can support them. Like if we can support them, or if we're still just going to be relying on outside funds and grants and all of that stuff.
That's what I was kind of thinking too, is like, I mean, we're in a unique situation here where we get to have just a bevy of awesome, you know, motivated, incredible, bright people coming and talking to us on a weekly basis. But it just feels from our vantage point that Erie is just like this city that is just like burgeoning with like talent and opportunity and really just like so close to making that next step to being like this even more incredible place to live. And you know, how does you know the governmental side tie into that to make this like a success?
Well, that's why you have to make sure your friends are registered to vote and participating in the elected process. I mean, in 2019, when I decided to run for city council for the first time at 25, it was due to going as a community organizer before city council, telling them what the problems were. This is what our community is facing. This is what we think would help benefit livelihoods and, you know, the morale and just change the next generation of Erie citizens. And when you have people who are detached from the day-to-day struggle, they don't care. They scroll on their phone. They take phone calls during the meetings.
That's classy as fuck.
They do all kinds of things while citizens are being, you know, heard. So for me, it was like, okay, well, the players at the table don't care. So what do you do when the players at the table don't care? You change the players at the table. So I ran for city council with no grace from anyone. Like I didn't ask the status quo people, am I allowed to do this? Is it okay? Do you approve of this? Because that's what they really want you to do. I wasn't doing that.
Beg for permission.
Yeah, no. I'm going to do this because I'm going to do it because it needs done. And no one's going to get it done how I know I can get it done. And also get regular people caring about these things because their regular life is impacted by it.
Sure.
So, I lost my primary by 187 votes.
Boo. That was 2018?
That was 2019.
2019, okay.
So then we had the pandemic, but when you're in it, you're in it. You don't go away. You don't just, I lost, now I'm going to sit out for 3 years and then show back up. No, I was consistent. I was there. I did my part. I showed up. Even though I didn't have the title, I was still doing the job. And my community remembered that. So when I ran again the second time, I was the 4th highest vote getter after the name recognition. And that just showed with all the time and dedication I put in without being on the ballot, without having a guaranteed seat coming up to say I'm going to earn it. It was just, I'm doing this because I'm doing it. I have the time. I have the energy.
Sure.
I'm not going away. I'm 30. Well, at that time I was 25. Don't give up. Run again. 25.
Sure.
You don't
Why
give
not?
up.
Yeah, dude.
You're
way
regroup.
too young and too stupid at that time to know to give up
Right.
on anything.
You just regroup and you come back stronger. And that's literally what happened the whole time the Zoom was going on, the whole time everything was going on. People were hesitant and they just showed up literally a few weeks before they needed signatures. And, some people didn't have as much of a easy time getting on the ballot that second time, but the ones who wanted it worked for it.
Right.
Chuck ran when I ran in 2019. He wanted it. And now we're both there. And you wouldn't think that we would get along as well as we do now, because before we were toe and toe and neck.
Right.
You're
fighting for the same seat.
Your privilege doesn't allow you to understand where I'm coming from. But now you understand where I'm coming from. And I understand where you're coming from, too. So it's a different understanding when you no longer have to fight for the same bone.
Right, sure. Because you guys are both at the table and there's plenty for everybody to eat.
Yes, and now we can make room for others,
Right.
which is what I'm all about, which is why I support Susanna and her writing campaign, which is why I say, hey, if you want to work for that seat, work for it. Don't stop working for it until you get it, because you might not get it this time. You might have to run again. But if you want it, you will get it.
Right, and it's like, it seems, I'm without question, you worked incredibly hard to get your position, but it is attainable. You know what I mean? I think if anything, it demonstrates that like it is attainable, it is doable. You can get these positions and make change or try to make change or
or
push
at least
for
change the
change.
things that are possible. Like, you talk to your solicitors, you get advice, you learn what legally you can and cannot do. And then you're like, okay, well, I can't do this, and this is what I wanted to do. How do I tone it down
Right.
to allow it? And
Right.
then you get your solicitors. And most of the time, our current solicitor, he's pretty cool. Ed Betsa and our deputy, Jason, they're pretty cool. I have a pedestrian ordinance in the works, and I know Freda is going to be so happy about it, because I've been hearing about the need for a pedestrian ordinance since I was sitting in the audience as a regular community member. Hearing her advocate for our disabled and our, visionally impaired, community members. And I work with the intellectually disabled, and I work with the physically disabled. So for me, it's like, yes, that's my community. Those are my people. Make sure they have access to access our whole city year round.
Right.
We should make sure and prioritize that, because we do have a community of people who come here specifically for the access that the Barber Center gives people, the access that Voices for Independence gives people, and all these, in-home health agencies that we provide. And we don't understand that these people are people too. They have value too.
For sure.
And not enough people acknowledge that. So for me, it's like I get to hear and listen to all voices when I'm in the room, because I have an understanding of all the voices that are here, not just my privileged little bubble of voices that have my direct contact to reach me. And, that's nice if you have that, but it's nice to make sure that you have the support of your community too, because if you keep them happy, you can go very far in the
Right.
city, because they remember who's doing the work and who's showing up and who's there every time, not just when the camera's there.
For sure.
And that's what's impactful for me and what's been a good experience for me in the community. And that's why, when I'm in areas, I'm well received. I'm not tolerated like some people.
I think it's interesting that you and Tyler both kind of come from a mental health background and are on councils, separate councils, right?
Well, no, he's gonna be on. City
He's going to be
Council.
on city council. I knew there was some reason that he's not there yet. It's because he's not there
Yeah,
till.
the general will happen on November 7th, which is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, about.
So make sure that you go out and vote.
That's
vote.
right, November 7th. But what I was saying is that it's cool to see people coming from a mental health background where they can get down kind of on the ground level with people who are, not coming to the table from a good position.
Right.
And to help those voices be heard and to represent those voices. Because I think for a long time, those voices have been incredibly underrepresented or misrepresented for tens and or 20s and 30s of years. You know what I mean?
When the focus is the loudest people in the room, you kind of don't hear the little buzzing from the other voices that are just trying to be heard. So for me, it's like, if you tone down the loud ones, what do you hear? Who do you see?
Right.
If the same people are always being heard and always seen, then how do we make room for the other people to feel safe enough to voice what they need to? Because at the end of the day, it also comes down to, am I safe enough to share?
Sure.
Am
absolutely.
I comfortable in this space? And, as a young Latina woman in most spaces that are older and white and male dominant, it can be intimidating. But when I walk into a room, I walk into a room with the confidence of my community behind me.
That's right.
Because I earned this seat. I didn't ask anyone for it. I didn't have anybody give it to me. I didn't have anybody write me a check and say, hey, we're going to support you on this.
Sure.
Or call me on my late night line and say, hey, we want you to run for this office.
Yeah.
No. I said, I want this seat. I'm going to get this seat. And any seat that I want in the future, I know my community is going to help me get.
Absolutely.
Because I've been true to them and I've been working hard to keep them informed and involved in the process. Like, you don't always get it right, but I didn't say I knew everything. I'm 30 years old. I'm going to get some things wrong, but at least I'm accepting of the criticism and the input and the advice that people are going to give me, whether or not I want it.
Right.
For sure.
It's so much more important to be able to learn and grow than anything else. Like, if you think you're going to get something right every single time, like you're putting yourself behind the eight ball,
Setting yourself up for failure.
Exactly.
You're setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up for
A
just a
very
lack of
limited-
grace and embarrassment. You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things that like really annoys me, especially on like a national level politics. If you're talking politics with anybody, is that like so many people are just so afraid to ever admit that they got anything wrong ever about anyone or anything. It's like, look, dude, we're all humans here. We all make mistakes. We all are presented with new evidence all the time about tons of different things. And based on that new evidence, we need to reevaluate our decisions and see if we need to make a change.
Or our opinions,
Yeah.
The only time you ever hear it, maybe on all levels, but the only time you ever really hear it is when someone's done something criminally wrong, then they're like, I've made a mistake.
Or they're
I'm
like,
sorry,
hell
I'm
no,
wrong."
I didn't do that shit.
Or-
That's what's going on right now, dude.
Yeah.
It's with the Trump trial. Like, I didn't like everybody's like, no, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. Look, there's clearly some stuff going on here that is not above board. And you guys can all just keep on denying it, and we could all deny it and just say this is a kangaroo court and whatever else. Or we can like look at things and be like, maybe there was some fishy business going on
Right.
here.
I guess more like, I was thinking more like, without someone making you do it with pressure, I really respect people who can go, hey, you know what? I thought that this would work, or I thought that this was the angle to take with this certain issue, but I've talked to me, with counterpoints, whatever, look things over. I was wrong about this one. I think that takes a lot of moxie.
Yeah, it does for sure. Especially not when you're like caught like red-handed.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I think that's more what what you were trying to say, and versus the way I interpreted it is that like you don't need to get caught to say that you're wrong or proven wrong or in trouble or whatever it is to be able to be like, yeah, I'm sorry and I made a mistake.
It happens.
It happens all the time, and
It's just the accountability that people hate to, take on.
Right.
It's like, if you can be accountable, then it's like, okay, you can move on from it. But if you are sitting there and you're continuously denying and trying to find a reason why it isn't your fault, it's like, okay, well, obviously you're not understanding that this is bad.
Right.
or that this is wrong and you have to reevaluate some things, but that's on you to do,
Right.
not on me to carry for you.
I think it's incredible that so many people miss the fact that the common denominator in all of their problems is them. You know what I mean?
Hold that mirror up.
Right. Look at that thing for a while and see who and what your problems are in every single one of your problems. Because you at least played some sort of part in it every time, no matter what.
Yep.
But that's a lot to ask for a lot of people these days, I think. Unfortunately.
In any time.
Anytime. So what do you think what's next on the agenda now that this these tenant rights ordinance has been passed?
Well, I know it's not going to be the first meeting of October, because I just got notified this morning by the chief clerk, Lori. She was like, I'm really sorry, but it's not their fault. Sometimes things slip, but we're going to have a pedestrian ordinance, which is pretty much just making sure that pedestrians have safe access.
So like new sidewalks?
Well, like if you're going to be doing the sidewalks are not the city's responsibility.
I know, they're mine.
They're the homeowners.
Yeah, shut up, dude. Mine are fucked up out there.
I'm just saying.
I don't have any money.
That's the problem with a lot of people on the east side
either.
too. You should see
Right.
the sidewalks over there.
Well,
and
I'm
it's like-
almost east side. I'm like literally just on the dividing line.
It's a mess. So I don't know if there's ever going to be any type of infrastructure money that we can maybe try, or grant money that we can apply for. But
There's grant money, but it's hard to get.
we need sidewalks, and I sympathize because like I see elderly people with like my thing is we have an aging population.
Sure.
And I work with the elderly, I work with the disabled. Like I used to be a PCA, I used to be a medical assistant. Like I have an understanding for people.
Mm-hmm.
And with all of our aging elders, there's not enough seating throughout the blocks so that people can take a rest. There's not enough shade. There's not enough safe sidewalk. Like I understand why Freda is a stickler for the rules. Like she needs to be. And I appreciate her because we need more people like her. And she's always honing on, if you're going to be constructing, make sure that people know, that they can see, and that they have a safe way to access whatever it is that they have to access. So this pedestrian ordinance is going to making sure that when the permit process is being issued, before you get a permit, you have to provide information to city to let us know how pedestrians are going to be getting through and access and around, and if there's going to be overhead things, you have to provide like overhead protection for them to walk through. So there's certain things that we just pulled from the PennDOT pedestrian ordinance that's on the state level, and we use some of that stuff. So that's coming. Chuck is working on an ordinance for the chickens and bees and goats.
Are we going to be allowed to have them?
I mean, he's going to put it up for a vote, and council is going to vote how council is going to vote. So
That we're allowed to have them, or we're not allowed to have them? That like the whole ordinance, like is it setting up a thing saying that we are allowed to have them or we aren't?
I
like
think
the bill
that he's
itself.
trying to set up an ordinance to allow a certain number
Okay.
of chickens.
I swear to God, my one neighbor has a chicken in his backyard, I
Oh,
was
don't-
like intensely
don't
hallucinating
snitch
it.
on him,
Nobody
dude.
knows where I live other than us here, and I'm not saying which neighbor.
Like throughout the city, there's quite a few undercover hen houses.
Right.
Okay, I'm just saying, and they're thinking about allowing like beekeeping, which I think would be good because our bees are like
Yeah, we need
important.
bees.
And then something about goats, because I guess a lot of the new Americans, like, they want to grow their own food, which
Sure.
is understandable. But at the same time, if you don't got a lot of land, I don't know if the neighbors next door are going to want to hear your goats yelling at each other, because they
That's
sound
true.
like humans screaming. Literally. So there's that.
Was that a goat? What, you got a goat in here?
No, there aren't any goats in the basement. I
Chuck
swear.
is in the process of working with our solicitor to do those game slots.
Oh shit, yeah, dude. I was trying to convince Dave and Celinda both to do an investigative piece on all of the
Oh, you're talking about the skilled gaming.
the skilled gaming that's going on, but neither of them ever did.
They still should. Like
I
a lot of these like grocery stores are being, and it's gonna be. They're all becoming the skilled games. They're like 20 in old grocery stores. So
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Chuck is.
There's a
in
story in there for sure.
literally when you see little kids out by the gas pumps and their parents are on the slots, there's definitely a story in there.
Especially
disgusting.
when it circumvents the
regular gambling and gaming laws.
Regulated gaming.
And they're not regulated. So right now, I think the ordinance is going to be increasing the licensing, because I guess like you're supposed to pay $50 for those like skilled game machines, but
really, to have a license, yeah, I'm sure that. See, there's a bunch of like sketchy stuff going on in all of them, and I can just like see it without actually having to see it. You know what I mean?
That's funny. I don't play it. It's like that's just like my elderly and my intellectually disabled people on the scratchy machines.
Yeah.
Disgusts me.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not good for anybody. Like I was in a vape shop picking up some nicotine juice or whatever, and there's like people just like one old lady looking really miserable playing these skilled games, and I'm like, this like
can't be healthy.
This can't be good for her. This can't be good for like anybody that's playing them. Who the fuck? What the hell makes this a skilled game, and how likely are they to actually ever like win anything?
At least the casino has a certain amount of that tax money that has to go back into the
right
county.
Into the
like, and they're all paying cash, I'm sure. So this is all just like
non-tax,
gray money.
Nothing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just bad. I just know that I remember being a young girl. I probably shouldn't have been watching the movies with my grandma, but Lifetime Movie Network, the woman channel.
Yeah. Oh,
so you would watch some crazy movies, and there was one where there was a woman who she was like a really successful businesswoman, and she got addicted to the slots.
Yeah.
And like it's based off a true story. You get to see her whole life like deteriorate. So that's always been like something like that I've always thought like, oh no, I'm not
playing that.
Yeah, like so there were certain stories and situations that I would witness in those movies, and like you're a first generation American. You're not like, you don't see that in your family. You don't see this in your culture. So you're just like, okay, and you go with it, but it's like educating you. And if you don't have that knowledge, like there was one where a young boy got addicted to porn. Mm-hmm. I was like, how do you get addicted to that? But as a young person, you're watching, you're just like, oh, I guess if you spend a lot of time watching and indulging and like, playing, you get addicted.
Right.
So, addiction is real.
Oh, for sure.
Without
people
a doubt.
have vices. Like, I see my grandma smoke cigarettes every day of my life, her Virginia Slims menthol, and she died from stage 4 small cell lung cancer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, your own things are what cause damage, so.
Humans are creatures of habit, too. Mm-hmm. Once something becomes like a habit or something that's regular, or it's the stigma or the nuance or the whatever that's keeping you from doing it becomes like regularized in your brain, it just gets so easy to jump into that, as we talk about how bad gambling is, as we sit around my poker table here in the studio.
All drinking caffeine.
Yeah, exactly. All drinking caffeine. Cheers. And I got my vape right here, so...
cell phone.
Yeah, all of it.
This one doesn't have caffeine.
Oh, look at you.
Oh, wow. Dave, so much better than
Dr. Pepper like a champ.
Yeah. But it's interesting to see that. Like, I feel like those just, like, popped up, too, like, very recently. Like, in the past, like, year to 6 months, they just started populating every corner, every gas station, anywhere that wasn't like a...
I want to say about maybe 3 to 6 months into the pandemic. That's when I started noticing on the Lower East Side, it really, really starting to take over.
Well, there's I read an article about this recently. Like, it wasn't here. It was somewhere else in Pennsylvania, though. But this guy was doing it in North Carolina, and North Carolina tightened their regulations and pretty much drove all those skilled games out. So he took his stuff and came here because he was like, oh, that's still like, it's like a Wild West type thing.
He just took all of his things, and brought them over. That's crazy.
So
I guess there's like one company that like makes the machine.
I'm sure there is. And like rents them at. I know a lot about this, but that's
He's like too much.
Maybe we'll talk about.
Well,
this
you should write something about it for the people to read for sure.
No, I'm not gonna say that on an air.
No, Dave should do it. You guys should all message him when you watch this and be like, Dave, tell me more about these skilled gaming things, because Dave's a really good writer and he's a good investigator, and so is Celinda, and I'm trying to encourage them to do what they want to do. You know what I mean?
It reminds me, I've made friends over the years with a lot of people from the older generation. It reminds me a little bit of like the gambling stories I've heard from older people that the mafia used to run. So that's why I don't want to write this story.
You mean like the back room,
like the back room, like running numbers and stuff like that. Like this is
before it was state legal or whatever in Pennsylvania.
And I know that's more like behind closed doors. This is like just wide out in the open. You know, you can go down the street and there's just a little trifold sign that says "This played skilled games here." You know,
like literally 24 hours. Like what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like how do they even do? I mean, I guess it's making money. People will do it. You know what I mean? Even if it means staying open 24 hours and
they're only paying their workers minimum wage. Come on.
Well,
now.
I feel like they're probably just a family that
More than
own these,
likely.
you know what I mean, that own these small like gas stations and little shops and stuff like that. So they have dad who works third shift and mom who works during the day and son, daughter who works after they get home from school, you know what I mean, or cousin, auntie, uncle, you know, whoever.
I've heard. No, I don't want to say that. Never mind. I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
I'll tell you off the air. But
So
yeah,
we're looking at like an ordinance for this?
Yeah, we're gonna increase the fee, and I don't know if it's gonna be on I don't know if we're gonna have like the first reading on the November 1st meeting, or if it's gonna be the second meeting.
Okay.
Because I haven't seen the agenda, and I honestly haven't even looked at the email today.
So it's just gonna make the license more expensive?
Yeah, I think they're increasing.
What about
it.
enforcement?
Well, the thing is that if we can prove that we need to get more code enforcement officers, so if someone can like document all the hours it takes for them to go and look into these machines and look, and we can start billing hours, then maybe we can hire some code enforcement people in the coming years. We can put it in our budget.
Yeah.
But we
don't have enough code enforcers? We don't have any code enforcers.
No, we have some code enforcement officers, but there's only so many, and there's so much that they have to go and do. And right now they're already understaffed. They said they needed 1.5 people to be able to go after just the blighted properties and all that stuff when we got a study session almost 2 years ago. So I can just imagine with all the new stuff that we've been giving them to do.
They're probably just way behind, you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, that's probably what it is. But I also think that sometimes people get comfortable in certain positions and they don't want to do certain things.
That's
and then
true.
for sure.
They're like, oh, let the new person do that. And then the new person just like barely able to do their job that they're supposed to be doing, let alone all the new stuff that all the higher ups said, hey, it's not my problem anymore, even though you're still technically getting paid for it.
Well, you know, like the old stereotype about like bureaucrats in general, right? Like just not very helpful or very ambitious or busy or really good at doing their jobs.
I think that's a lot
or
of
have
people.
a munch.
I think that's a lot of people's dreams. Not everyone's, but a lot of people's dreams in any line of work is to just work your way up to the point where you get paid the most to do the least.
To do nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people that are in the bureaucracy like sit. I'm not making very many friends today, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to stay.
He's like, I want to get a
That's
job
okay.
in the future.
No,
Right
lots
in
of
the middle.
there are tons of people, and I don't say this in a bad way. There are tons of people, bureaucrats, that are incredibly hardworking and good and stuff. I'm just speaking to the stereotype of, you know, the one that you see on movies or on TV shows or whatever that like doesn't really do much of anything all day.
I've always wanted to see, but it's weird. Like I'm in the middle. Like I'm maybe a little more progressive. I'm definitely in the middle with my political leanings. Like I think it's like, you know, ridiculous, and you know, you shouldn't just be able to sit on your laurels and this and that. But I also would really like to be making enough money, get one of those old like white British wigs, and just like chill out in like a fancy suit and stuff, and just watch other people do things. You know,
Right.
so it's like it's a conundrum. It's the human experience.
It's a human experience.
See, I've been a shift supervisor at Panera Bread. That was something I've done in the past, and then I've worked at McDonald's. And when you're a supervisor, you realize you catch more bees with honey than vinegar.
Sure.
And if you're willing to do something and your workers are able to see you do that, you can ask them to do anything.
Oh, without a
and they
doubt.
will do it.
Without a doubt.
So for me, I will never ask anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And that has gained me so much respect among workers who work with me, under me, and around me, because it's like, if I'm not going to do it, then I wouldn't ask you to.
Right.
I guess it comes down to, and this is anything, including like your vision of Erie. Like, it depends what your definition of success looks like. To some people, a definition of success is like, maybe getting into political office and making a nice salary that you can comfortably retire on. And if that's your goal and your vision, then you're going to act accordingly. You're going to stay close to the people that will help you, keep on getting reelected as you continue to make your investments, make your money. But if your vision is to make Erie just a better place for the marginalized, for everybody, then you're going to be doing different things, maybe more like risky, not some, risky things as far as not being scared of ruffling feathers if it means the right thing's getting done. It's all about perspective.
Right. I think a lot of people don't really retire from local politics, though.
Yeah, but
it's not a super high paying gig, correct, Jasmine?
Oh, no. One of the first ordinances that I passed coming on to council was increasing city council wages the first time after, I believe, 40 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We made it to where I would just wanted to give people the increase, but in order to get support, you have to do and tweak things to get that for. Mm-hmm. So we had to do it in a tiered scale.
Yeah.
And it was, you'll get $6,000 for the first term, and then after that, you'll get 2,000 added
Right.
each time up until I believe the 10,000
Yeah.
marker.
I guess the point that I'm bringing this to is that being a city councilor is not a full-time job.
No, it's they say it's not a full-time job. Right now, me and everyone who's currently on council gets paid $6,000 for the whole year.
Yeah.
And if you're really thinking about how much running around the city you're doing, that might cover your gas.
Right.
And your coffee meetings, if you're lucky. Because I drink a lot of coffee, and my coffee is about $5 a thing. So $5 a day. I need my pick me up because that's my reward for the day. So yeah, right now it's 6,000. But once we win re-election, myself, Mo, and Chuck will be at that incline. Right now, Chuck's the president, so he makes more money. I believe the president makes, is it 8? They might make 8,000.
Yeah. It's not a lot. But, which is probably why a lot of the times the elected officials in the past have been old. I feel like that's something I do when I'm old and I'm retired and I'm already fat and sassy and rich and... Now I just need now I get an extra $6,000 to show up once or twice a week and make myself still feel important.
And I'm saying that very much reflects on, policy and legislation that's been put through to this point, because when you have that viewpoint, you're like, oh, whatever.
And I believe when you're retired, you can only collect so much money.
Yeah, or else you don't get your Social Security or something like that.
Yeah,
That sounds
so
right.
That I feel like that in the past has been why some pushback on the increase in the salary has always been one of those touchy issues. People are always scared it's going to affect their reelection, but ultimately, if you're putting in the time and the work, then you deserve to be compensated, regardless of what people feel. Like, you're not giving it out of the kindness of your heart. It takes time. People are working a whole full-time job on top of this job.
Right.
I work 40 hours, 39.5 at one job, one job, and then I do my city council stuff. And it's I take Wednesday completely for city council business, so sometimes I schedule my one-on-ones. I'm doing other meetings with people who I need to meet with, phone calls I have to do, and responding to emails that we're getting bombarded with all day, because city council is only there technically 2 Wednesdays a month.
Right.
But you have a city hall, city administration that's going 40 hours a week.
Sure.
8 hours a day. So they're going on about business while you're out doing your regular job. So you're getting sent all kinds of memos. You're getting sent all these updated bills. You're getting sent all this need to know information, like the mayor's press conferences, which, I don't know. I don't think it's all press conference necessary, but hey, if you need the moment of glory, go for it. But
The mayor is a full-time paid job, though, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It is a full-time paid job. It's a pretty decent salary.
Same with county exec.
Yeah.
But you counselors don't get that. Well, I don't know. It's different positions, but still crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only like Harrisburg that has their council people considered full-time. There's only like 2 or 3 different third-class municipal cities that have full-time city council people.
But even then, like, we're looking, how many people are on council? 5?
There's 7 of us.
7. So let's say $50,000 a year times 7. That's an extra $350,000 like
That
more
we
than
don't
$250,000
that we don't have.
to pay you guys to do this job.
Like, we already don't have the increase
Exactly,
that we
that's
just did.
yeah.
And it was like, how could you justify? But, like, everything else is going up. Like, we justify it because we need to. If we want to bring new people into City Hall, you're going to have to increase that minimum that you're paying people.
Right.
Because right now, you're not giving what's needed to sustain yourself in our city. And that's a problem when you're trying to get young people to take over these jobs that people are retiring from at record numbers. How are you going to get the next generation to learn these jobs, or you're going to advertise for jobs that are never filled because you're not willing to pay people what they deserve to sustain themselves?
Especially,
family sustainable wages.
Especially if they want an extra part-time job, they can probably work less than half the amount of hours picking up a bartending shift once or twice a week and make way more money.
Yeah. So it's insanity. It's the definition of insanity. So we have people who are barely surviving, being told that we should be grateful by the people who've always had everything, you know, the privileged generation, the baby boomers.
And that your $5 coffee is keeping you from home ownership.
I'm going to enjoy that large butter pecan iced coffee every day I work. And since I work 6 days a week, guess what? I get to enjoy it 6 days a week.
Look at you go.
That sound good. That does sound good.
Because at the end of the day, we only get the simple joys. And that's why we were talking yesterday at a study session about how people my age are taking recreational flights more than they are buying houses, more than they're starting families. And it's like, because we're living in the moment.
Yeah.
I literally worked with a gentleman who was wheelchair bound. He was in his late 50s, working every day, going to work until he could reach his retirement age so he could collect the whole thing. He died in January.
Boo.
Well, I think that goes to anybody. I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen, but any of us could walk out the door and die today. You got to live your life
without collecting something that you're working so hard for.
Right.
Enjoy your moment. Enjoy whatever little luxury you like, whether it's food or your coffee, because at the end of the day, like you said, you can go at any moment. You can get a life-altering illness, and you have a savings so you could have a nice retirement, and now you don't even get to retire because we don't have health care for all, and you're going to die in debt.
Yeah.
Like our reality in America, sadly, is not as bleak as other places. But that's why I decided, like, I want to make it better.
Sure.
I want to make it better on the local level, and then maybe one day if my community will have me on a higher level.
Hell yeah.
But you can't make things better without other people helping you. It's not a me, it's a we. So I'm happy that there are more people who have been coming along in the last few years. It's not as lonely being one of the voices speaking for the whole versus the few. So it's reassuring to see the growth that Erie has done since 2018, because it was very lonely being one of the only voices speaking to a tune. But now there's other voices in corners that are like making our voice louder, making the mission that we see for our city and what we want for our kids and the next generation to be sustainable here. Like, I don't want to have the fear of Erieites being pushed out of our city, not being able to afford to be here, not being able to stay here if we choose to, because we have fresh water and people are going to come in droves when they need water, and we're already here. This is our city. So I don't know about anybody else, but I've always been a fighter. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA. And at the end of the day, we need more people who feel that way, because this is our city. Like, our family might have migrated from all over, but we were born here. So we have a special kind of connection. These are where our roots started. And I want to know that I've done everything I can for the next generation here and to sustain myself here. So my goals for my future, I'm gonna be a homeowner, hopefully in the next 3 to 5 years. I will own a dog, hopefully,
Fuck yeah.
in the next 3 to 5 years, because renters don't necessarily get the privilege of having pets, and a lot of the leases automatically say unless it's an emotional support animal or like a license, you really shouldn't have it. I don't want to have to go through the whole process of getting my dog certified to just be able to do that, because it's just like extra work. If you don't want him here, then I don't want you to put extra obstacles for him or her to be here. So for me, that's a goal in the future. And then more than likely, depending on what's going on with council in the next couple of years, I'll probably be going up for re-election, at least for sure for the second term. But when you're 30 years old, it's kind of hard to know what's going on as far as, where would the dominoes fall? Sure. Like, what if I need to run for a different seat because I need to run for that seat? So we'll see.
Cool.
Awesome.
But, it's all fun and games when you're working towards the future of our city.
Yeah, that's right.
You're doing a wonderful job, by the way.
Thank you so much for doing what you do. We all appreciate it. Your community appreciates you. The city of Erie appreciates it. And hopefully all of our viewers appreciated it. We had a great time sitting and hanging out with you today and having this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to all our sponsors, all of our Patreon supporters. You guys are the best. Everybody that tunes in, likes, shares, follows, all of those things. Y'all are number one. We love you. Peace out, guys.
Bye.